welcome to the Jane Austen House Museum, and it's a great pleasure to introduce you to its curator, Dr. Mary Guyett. We're here in the drawing room in what was Austen's home in the village of Chawton from 1809 until shortly before her death in 1817. So thank you so much, Mary, for having us along today to talk to you about what some people must think is the best job in the world, which is curating this very special place in relation to Jane Austen's life and her works. I wonder if you could just tell us a little bit about some of the challenges and some of the rewards of your position.
Being a museum curator, it's a very varied role because we run here as a charity, as a visitor attraction, as a seat of learning, and as a very public venue.
What do you think's special about authors' houses, authors' homes?
I think that there's clearly a relationship between authors and the lives that they lead and the work that they are inspired to write. So that people are looking for an understanding of the person behind the words, often the novels that they love dearly. I think in Austen's case, it's so much an appreciation of her social status that one understands here how she understood what life was like for different types of people.
So one of the things I wanted to ask you is, when you're curating this space, one of the challenges I imagine is that in terms of authentic furniture that the Austen families would have known, there isn't that much. You know, this house went under many changes and transformations in the 19th and early 20th century. So how do you get the feel authentic?
I think that that's one of our challenges and something that I really enjoy. We have a few pieces of furniture, for instance the bureau behind you and the two chairs of this design that came from Jane's family's home in Steventon. Other pieces have been donated to us, borrowed from other museums. If we haven't got access to the Austen's family furniture, then to acquire items that feel right and are of the right period and of course of the right status as well.
Yes, absolutely, yeah. And in terms of an acquisitions policy then, of course, you will always prioritise anything that has a direct link to the family. But are you looking to local manufacture?
We are. We recently acquired a clock and we set about researching what kind of a clock we should go for, and at the same time learnt that the Austens bought from an Alton local town clockmaker by the name of Snelling.
Oh, fantastic.
So we knew at that moment that it was a Snelling clock that we would
looking
acquire.
For.
Yes.
So I suppose there's a lot of serendipity in those acquisitions. You know, is the right thing on the market, and of course crucially, can you afford it? In terms of curating the space, again, I mean, I'm looking here at some absolutely marvellous wallpaper, which I know is new. Can you tell me a little bit about it?
Yes, we, again, this is something that we've known about as an organisation from the beginning. Behind the bureau, and you see it from outside, is a bricked up window.
Yes.
And in renovating the house as a museum in the 40s, they discovered on the very first layer of plaster over the brick were fragments of wallpaper. And we've had those and enjoyed them all that time, and we were able to get the resources together and find a very specialist wallpaper manufacturer who took the samples, orientated them, studied them, and came up with this replica.
And it was interesting just to go back to this question of what a busy place the village of Chawton was in Jane Austen's own life here in the village, because I think now it can be misleading. You come to quite a quiet village, and of course she wrote here.
Yes.
We know that a great part of her writing life, 3 novels fully drafted here, started and completed here, and another 3 revised for publication.
Exactly.
And how do you go about creating a sense of this as a place where someone wrote and thought?
Well, I think you, as a curator, you are constantly thinking about what visitors bring with them already. Many
Yes.
of them will know those novels, they will carry the phrases in their minds, others won't. So it's partly about it's judging that and saying enough to capture the meaning of those books for those that know them so well and love them, and inspiring others to pick up a book on the way out. I think some very important areas in the museum here are the writing desk. We have Jane's desk, and that's on display, and if you talked about pilgrimage, and that is probably the pinnacle for many people.
Yeah, no. You've got some other fascinating relics on the table in front of us here, and I wonder if you could tell us a bit about them.
So I've brought out a few items that really talk about Jane's life, and at different moments in the museum's history have represented decisions that the museum has made about what it collects and how.
So the first one then, in terms of the museum's history, would be this rather wonderful piece here.
Yes.
Hair.
Well, I think you'll know that in Jane's time, collecting hair, exchanging pieces of hair within jewellery and in letters was a common practice. And in fact, when she died, her sister Cassandra wrote to family members asking them how they would like her hair sent to them, how they would like it mounted. And so there will be a few pieces of hair still in evidence. And this is one of the earliest items that the museum acquired.
So moving on then, I suppose, to this second object here, which...
This ring is one of the few items of jewellery associated with Jane, and it has a terribly good provenance. We had a number of letters that marked the giving of this object from Cassandra Austen, Jane's sister, on to other family members and down female line.
Through the line,
Yes, and each note would say, look after this ring and look after this note, the previous note, so that there's a chain.
A chain,
and this came up at auction in 2012. The museum absolutely went for it and felt that we could bring it home to Chawton, and that's how we see these acquisitions that we're making. I had just joined the museum. I had no idea how quickly it would move. It took about 2 weeks for the money,
extraordinary, isn't it,
to be raised, for all the money necessary. And then, we had it back here within a month.
No, it's an amazing story, and I think testament to the great love of that many generous donors have for Jane Austen and for her place, her home in Britain, because of course she's a global literary celebrity. But there is a sense that she needs to be situated in one place, and that here makes sense.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that one would be going to trusts and foundations that give grants. Not in this instance, it was all individuals.
That's extraordinary.
And from around the world.
And we should say many generous American donors.
This is it.
It wasn't it wasn't a purely British campaign.
Worldwide.
Absolutely fascinating. And then the final object here.
Yes, I brought that along really to think about the provenance and that question of personal manuscripts. Are an area that we're very actively collecting, and how we began our collection in the 1940s. And this was something that we acquired in 2013, very shortly after the ring, in fact. And it's what's known in the world of Austen as a sermon scrap. It is one of several pieces of sermons that Jane wrote for her brother, wrote out for him. It's difficult to say whether she composed them or whether she was simply transcribing them. And in the 1870s, when her nephew had written his memoir of his aunt, and the cult of Austen was beginning, people were writing to him from around the country, having read the biography, asking for a memento, and he chopped up these sermons, or written out sermons, and sent them. And here's one that we bought at auction, and it would be wonderful. We do know that where a few of them are, and one day we would
patchwork them together.
Patchwork. Yeah, you could do it. You could do it digitally if you didn't do it physically.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, it's extraordinary to think about, really, isn't it? That would be a request that would be met favourably. But of course, the Victorians were very, very interested in that sort of the relic in the memento. Yes. And I know in the case of Charlotte Bronte, similar things were done. You know, scraps of her letters cut up, also dress fabric, and sent off to collectors. You know, bits of Charlotte Bronte's dress seem to be found in all kinds of places. So there are similarities there too. Well, there's a great deal more we could say, I know, but I just want to thank you for letting us see some of these treasures. I know for many people watching this video, they will have been to the Austen House Museum, but a great many will not have been. So this will give them a flavour of what awaits them when they do make that trip. Thank you so much, Mary, for a fascinating insight into your work here.
Thank you, Gillian.